Chat, chat. Everything just changed in week 11 fantasy football coming into week 12. We have so much to learn. So much just happened. So many injuries. This might be the most important week on the waiver wire for fantasy football with all of the injuries we have. Make sure to comment every single thing you could possibly come up with in your brain. We are going to go absolutely crazy, covering every single game, every single snap split, everything you could possibly think of. Hit that like button as you're coming in. If you're watching after the fact, we will go every single game. I'll start with the Commanders and the Dolphins here. There was a lot learned in this one, mostly that both of these teams are absolute buns. And it's unfortunate. I'm not wearing my Commanders shirt right now. You guys know I am a Commanders fan. I'm thankful that I did not have to endure this entire game. It was just disgusting. I mean, Marcus Mariota played decent, 16 fantasy points from him, 200 yards, a touchdown, interception. But really what's most important for this Commanders game from what we just learned is that Chris Rodriguez is turning himself into the RB1 in this backfield. He took a majority of everything. As you can see, 15 carries for 79 yards compared to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who really did not do much. I mean, he had a decent amount of carries, but it only turned into 3 yards per carry, 26, 28, not many yards. It was really disgusting. And this is the second straight week that Chris Rodriguez has turned into this RB1 for the Commanders. It's not something we love to see because the committee system, first of all, doesn't work. Second of all, the Commanders offense is it's so bipolar. And this Dolphins defense is one of the most positive in allowing fantasy points to running backs. I'm on the fence of if I trust Chris Rodriguez to be a fantasy football target on the waiver wire. I really do not think he is, in all seriousness. Even if he is this team's RB1, if he's not catching any passes, it's going to be tough. And he only ran, I believe, 9 routes last week. It's just, there's not much you can do with that. But speaking of routes, Deebo Samuel, 7 receptions, 74 yards. He did break one off for a touchdown. I believe it was like a 30-something yard touchdown. That was nice. If it wasn't for that, the day would have been okay. But still, without Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel is going to be a top option for us every single week. If you guys are just now hopping in the live stream, though, hit that like button. Follow if you're new. We're going over every single game and all the lessons we just learned because it was absolutely insane and absolutely a lot. But we know for the Commanders, all these other guys are not really going to be fantasy viable. We look at the Dolphins, though, probably the most disappointing factor here is that Jalen Waddle just did not turn into anything. What is up to everybody hopping in the stream, man? Jalen Waddle it's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. He was our guy. He had 3 receptions, 52 yards. He had a decent amount of targets. This Commanders defense is very soft, but I guess it just proves that Tua and this offense in general can't be trusted. Devon Achane, on the other hand, he took advantage of the Commanders' weak run defense, 21 carries, over 100 yards. He did his thing in the receiving game as well, 5 receptions, really is the leading receiver on this team. So it is absolutely ugly. Guys, make sure to comment any questions you guys have in the chat. Any kind of games you want me to skip to and go over instantly, I will definitely do. We look at this Packers game with the New York Giants. This one really wasn't much better. But we look at the running backs. The cover of this video, the cover of the live stream here, Josh Jacobs, injured, now probably going to miss a few weeks. In my opinion, again, I will talk about all this in the waiver wire videos coming this week. PCL injury for him. He exited the third quarter, did not come back. Emmanuel Wilson took over, as we can see, and got pretty much everything out of this backfield. 11 carries, 40 yards from that, and a touchdown. The only other running back to get touches here, you can see they're all receivers here, is Chris Brooks. He got 1 carry. He only played 5 snaps. It's all going to be Emmanuel Wilson. I do not expect Josh Jacobs to return this week. It looks to be, in my opinion, a 1 to 4 week injury. The PCL is the exact same thing that kept Ricky Pearsall out for a few weeks on top of that as well. So it's not necessarily super positive for him. What happened to Woody Marks? Somebody in the chat says, what happened to Woody Marks is that this entire offense, just the running game could not get going, which is surprising because the Tennessee Titans are actually a very easy run defense to score points on. Nico Collins had a good day. Woody Marks is just unfortunate. What happened to Woody Marks is he was still the RB1. He was dominating in touches. We can get into that later too. But it was just a down game. I'm not too worried about Woody Marks. We look at the receivers for the Packers here. Christian Watson is an ad off the waiver wire. He was in previous weeks as well. He was also in the stash videos earlier in the year. So if you aren't on that, again, hit the follow button, like the video as well. Christian Watson's really the only guy. We do have Jaden Reed coming back eventually. Probably not this week coming, but in the next 2 to 3. So he could be a guy, if he's on the waiver wire, to look at. Romeo Doubs really just dropped a lot of passes. Technically, he's the wide receiver 1, but he's been dealing with drop passes for the longest time. That's nothing new. Jameis Winston, as we expected, is going to be decent for the fantasy receivers, but not really that fantasy viable himself. What is more important about the Giants side of this matchup, though, is the split between Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary. You see Devin Singletary takes both of the goal line touchdowns. The split between these two is that Tyrone Tracy is still the lead back. He's still the RB1 technically in what is a committee, but all of the work that Devin Singletary is getting is in the short yardage game and also at the goal line. I don't think Devin Singletary is necessarily a top waiver ad. I would not be throwing all my waiver fab or priority on him. It would be Emmanuel Wilson. It is definitely going to be frustrating for him getting all these touchdowns. When Jackson Dart does come back, he's going to lose some of that because Jackson Dart just does run the ball in the end zone. But Devin Singletary can be an ad. I'm not too convinced on it, though. Isaiah Hodgins, Tyron Tracy, Wan'Dale Robinson, none of these guys really did too good. Isaiah Hodgins is a waiver wire trap. Do not add him. And we will go over to the next matchup here, guys. If you're just now hopping in the chat, let me know any questions you guys got. Hit the like button while you're here. And this matchup between the Texans and the Titans, one that somebody in the chat was just asking about. I mean, it's ugly, bro. It's ugly. Davis Mills actually brings this team to a win and played somewhat decently, but you look at this completion percentage, it's disgusting, bro. Like, nobody wants to see that. You see Woody Marks here. Majority, again, what we were talking about, the workhorse running back in this team. 18 carries compared to Nick Chubb's 3. 2.4 yards per carry was just not efficient, not good, not enough to get it done. Nico Collins, though, and these receivers did do decently. Dalton Schultz, of course, getting his receptions, not much more outside of that. But Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, Woody Marks, those are the top 3 in this offense. And Woody Marks still is going to be riding on the flex, if not the bench for us, in the positive matchups because he does have some pretty tough ones coming. Not much to talk about on the Titans side of things. I mean, Cam Ward is just doing Cam Ward things. They almost won this game. Tony Pollard is unplayable. We've been talking about this. We were selling him so aggressively earlier in the year. Tyrone Spears, apologies. He's only valuable because of the receptions. Chigakonkwo did decent. We can't expect that to happen every week. Calvin Ridley did go out, and I believe will be out for the rest of the year now. So that does make Chimere DK, I guess, a decent ad. But again, as you can see this week, 2 receptions, 14 yards. Like, that's not what we want. I am really not trusting any of these Titans receivers on a week-to-week basis. Looking at the Panthers side of things, though, the Panthers and the Falcons, this game goes into overtime. It actually is a very good Bryce Young game, putting up over 30 fantasy points, but over 400 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. The efficiency was pretty good in the air, too, and he did go out this game with a little bit of an injury, came back. Rico Dowdle, though, had a bit of a disappointing game in the rushing category, as you can see, but the receptions made up for it. He dominated in receptions. I mean, I think he ran 30 routes compared to Chuba Hubbard at 5. So, again, we're not worried about Rico Dowdle here, but the receivers, Ted McMillan finally has his breakout game. 8 receptions, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns, over 30 fantasy points. Like, it is just insane. This is why we're aggressively trading for Ted McMillan for moments exactly like this, because we knew it was going to happen. Now, are the Panthers going to put up 30 points every single game? The answer is no, but it is very impressive that they did this against one of the better Falcons defenses in the NFL. Outside of him, I'm not trusting Xavier Legette. He's the definition of a waiver wire trap. He did deal with a hip injury. It's questionable if he'll come back and play next week. Even if he does, 4 receptions, 63 yards, and a touchdown was great. But again, how often are the Panthers really scoring this ball to be able to make the second and third options that valuable? We did see Kirk Cousins fill in for an injured Michael Penix here. He didn't look that efficient. He was just filling in for what it was. Bijan Robinson, a lot of people were worried about. 23 carries, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, Tyler Algier did take a rushing touchdown in this matchup, which is going to be something we have to deal with all year. He's not running a ton of routes. Like, they're both being involved, but Bijan Robinson is primarily this pass-catching guy. He does get used, obviously, in the red zone, but Tyler Algier taking some of the red zone carries and touches there is definitely going to hurt fantasy value for Bijan, but with the amount of receiving upside he gets and the sheer amount of routes he runs, I'm not worried about it at all. You look at Drake London coming into this game, questionable with an injury. He ended up playing pretty much the whole thing, 7 catches, over 100 yards, doing what he does. And Darnell Mooney actually had a somewhat decent game, like over 6 fantasy points, better than what he's been doing. Kyle Pitts did disappoint in what was a very positive matchup, which was unfortunate. It just feeds into the fact that Kyle Pitts is Kyle Pitts, and I don't know if he will ever be the Kyle Pitts we want him to be. Next up, we do have the Bears and the Vikings in a game that came down to the absolute wire. Shout out to Cairo Santos if you started him in fantasy. Caleb Williams did not have a good fantasy day, though. He didn't throw for any touchdowns. Somebody said, am I starting Dak or Hurts? I mean, yeah, it's going to be Hurts for me. But yeah, Caleb Williams didn't do much in fantasy football this week. DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai actually split snaps a lot more than people expected. And honestly, me too. 12 carries for him. DeAndre Swift did still see 21. But again, Kyle Monangai is getting the goal line snaps. They are splitting 50-50 in that. But if you're going to lose touchdown upside to Kyle Monangai, it's going to make you that much more worrisome of a fantasy start. And you look at DeAndre Swift in the receiving game here, it wasn't like amazing. He didn't catch any passes, and Kyle Monangai did catch one. The routes were pretty similar as far as that goes as well. So the more interesting news here is that DJ Moore finishes with 1 reception. He's essentially unplayable. You cannot start DJ Moore in fantasy football in good faith. Now, yes, this was one of the toughest defenses in the NFL in stopping wide receiver fantasy points and yards, but DJ Moore ran the number 1 most routes this week, more than more than Rome Odunze, more than Cole Kmet, who is the top receiver this week, 5 receptions, 45 yards. This is, again, the same reason why we were saying we can't start Colson Loveland every single week that Cole Kmet is healthy. All of Loveland's top fantasy football games came from, the ones where Cole Kmet was not there. So we cannot be starting him while he's healthy. Rome Odunze did have a bit of a down game. It just speaks to the ebbs and flows of this offense, though. He is the wide receiver 1. He is getting the most target share. And we look at J.J. McCarthy, another disappointing game, 2 interceptions, a touchdown, 150 yards, terrible efficiency throwing the ball. But it does bode well for Aaron Jones because they can just give him checkdowns and give him the ball more. He will be, I don't think you could call it a league winner, but Aaron Jones is getting a lot of usage, and he does have one of the most positive fantasy playoff schedules and rest of season schedules. So that is absolutely amazing. Justin Jefferson has been frustrating, again, with the play that we've been seeing from JJ McCarthy. It definitely makes the upside for all of these guys a bit lower. TJ Hawkinson is not really going to be startable either. Justin Jefferson will bounce back, but if JJ McCarthy keeps doing this, he does have some better matchups coming, but the Bears defense really was not that good. They didn't have Jalen Johnson either, so it's definitely worrisome. But if we're speaking of worrisome, this game against the Chargers and the Jaguars was probably the most interesting and the most surprising game. I had Justin Herbert as a top 5 quarterback this week. He absolutely does nothing. 18 passing attempts, no touchdowns even thrown. They put Trey Lance in there. I mean, 6 of 35 is something that I'm sure nobody was expecting. Mark's legacy game, bro. I mean, I completely believe that it was supposed to be as well. I mean, last time he played the Texans, it was 27.9 fantasy points, what he put up. He did lead the team in rushing, 18 rushing attempts. It just didn't turn into anything, and this team was more or less depleted of offense, which seems to be the case with Davis Mills at quarterback. But you look at Justin Herbert, you look at all these running backs. Kamani Vidal did get injured in this game. We're not really trusting any of these other running backs. Also, Marion Hampton is projected to come back probably not this week, or I guess week 12, but the next. And you look at these receivers. I mean, Quentin Johnson put a big fat donut on our fantasy lineups. I had no choice but to start him in one of my leagues, so it was kind of unfortunate there. I still got the dub, unfortunately, because the rest of my team is pretty good. I got Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson. Let me know who you guys have on your roster. But Ladd McConkey, technically the wide receiver 1 as far as routes run go, but Keenan Allen did have a good game. It's just going to be the ebbs and flows of this offense with all of the wide receivers and now Aronde Gadsden getting involved here. It's going to be tough to start these guys every single week, or at least know who's going to be that number 1. It probably will be Ladd more than likely over everybody else. But you look at Trevor Lawrence here, they got the dub, and he didn't really do that much in fantasy football as far as points go. But who did do a lot is Bashaw Tutin. 15 carries compared to Travis Etienne's 19, despite not playing a single snap after he got injured in the third quarter, never ended up coming back. And he had the hot hand. Like, if we are completely honest, Bashaw Tutin was the more efficient running back. Now, we can't say he's just going to take over this backfield completely because Travis Etienne was more efficient from weeks 1 through 10. Like, he's not going anywhere. But if we see Bashaw Tutin continue to get this efficiency, if he's not injured, again, he did come down with an injury. There's a chance he misses week 12, but, it's not that big of a deal because week 12 was nothing for them. But still, he is a top waiver wire add for me. Travis Etienne, again, getting used in the receiving game. That's the one thing that Etienne is insanely ahead of Bashaw Tutin in. He ran quadruple the amount of routes as Tutin did. Now, yes, he did miss some time, but still, you look at Parker Washington, he can be dropped now at this point. With Brian Thomas Jr. coming back and healthy and Jacoby Myers playing as many snaps as he is, we can drop Parker Washington. And you look at this next game coming up with the Buccaneers and the Bills. Now, if you started Josh Allen, you guys are dropping some W's in the chat because I had Josh Allen in a league. He put up as many fantasy points as the Bills scored in the NFL football. That is insane. That is league winning. That's why you take Josh Allen as early as you did. Tutin looked better. He did this week. Travis Etienne has been the more efficient running back all throughout the year. This week did look amazing. I do worry about the matchups though, because Bashal Tutin succeeds and thrives in games that are close for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one was. Obviously, they won 35-6. Their matchups coming for the rest of the season, though, are very pass-oriented. They're not going to be up in these games, or at least sticking to a very heavy run script, which is bad for Bashal Tutin because he doesn't catch passes. He doesn't even run routes. So that is my one worry for him. But you look again at this Tampa Bay Buccaneers matchup. Unfortunate loss for them. Baker Mayfield played pretty decently. Sean Tucker, though, legacy game for him. Now, we do always see, every single year, we see a Sean Tucker legacy game. I'm not completely bought on this. I don't think he's a top waiver wire ad. I'm 100% a believer that Rachaad White's not good. I've been a believer since he had his, RB3 season, where he had just as many carries as Christian McCaffrey did. What was it, 2023? Something like that. Like, he was not efficient when he was the RB1 and still finished decently in fantasy football because of the sheer usage he got. We can see that here, why Sean Tucker was getting so many touches. I mean, 2 touchdowns, over 30 fantasy points this guy saw. But I don't really believe it. I think he's a waiver wire trap, if not a guy that we can sell for higher value. We do have Bucky Irving coming back eventually, and there's still going to be somewhat of a split backfield here, even if it's not. He still maybe can be startable for 1 week, but not a guy I'm loving. You look at these receivers, definitely a down day for Emeka Egbuka in what was supposed to be a decent matchup against the Bills defense, who are pretty positive in allowing fantasy points to wide receivers. But we're not worried about Emeka Egbuka. He's running the most routes per game. Cade Otton had a down game, but we expected it. The Bills allowed the number 1 least amount of fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Tez Johnson didn't have a good game, but he also was 1 route behind Emeka Egbuka at 34 compared to his 35 at number 1 and 2 in the most routes run this week. So I'm not worried about them at all. We look at Josh Allen again. He had his 44-point fantasy day. 2 interceptions did look pretty bad. The decision-making there were a little questionable, but I would have done worse. So what can you say? You look at James Cook, though. He was a little bit worrisome. I mean, with the amount of usage that you saw from Ty Johnson on third downs, we know that he's been involved in this offense. Ty Johnson is their third down and somewhat primary receiving back. You look at the receptions here. He saw 2 for 61 and a touchdown. James Cook did still get usage in that, though. We see he got a receiving touchdown, and he ripped a long one as well. I'm not worried about James Cook at all. Josh Allen is stealing touchdowns, but hey, he always is stealing touchdowns. We did see Keon Coleman get benched this week. There was really no injury there. It was just a complete benching, and nobody really stepped up. I mean, we saw Tyrell Shavers get 4 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown. He is a complete waiver wire trap. We are not worrying about Shavers on the waivers. Did not mean to rhyme, but we did there anyways. And Gabe Davis, nobody we can look at here. The Bills are very top heavy as far as their fantasy values. So it's not really a situation that I'm loving to get ourselves into. But the Bengals and the Steelers here in this matchup is one that I'm very surprised that the Bengals played so bad. I really did believe in Joe Flacco this week. The Pittsburgh Steelers were allowing some of the most fantasy points to tight ends, to quarterbacks, to wide receivers, everybody. Except running backs. They're pretty good against the running backs. But Chase Brown here had a pretty good day. No touchdowns in the rushing, but you look at the receiving here. It was pretty decent. 6 receptions for 20 yards. T. Higgins did have the better day. Jamar Chase was down. Again, because the Bengals didn't put together that much offense, there's not much you can really say. You're not worried about Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is a flex to start every single week. With the sheer passing volume, we actually saw the lowest passing volume or the lowest completion percentage here from Joe Flacco. We still passed 40 times, which is what we expect from him every single week. That's going to be amazing. Aaron Rodgers did go down with an injury, a hand injury in this one. It was his left hand, so it's not as worryable. Like if it's not, I guess worrisome. If it's not your throwing hand, it could be worse. He is a pretty tough guy. Like he could come back very, very soon. But what is worrisome is the Jaylen Warren injury. There is a very real chance that he does not return this week. Megan Kenneth Gainwell, the RB1, he had, I believe, over 20-something fantasy points because of the amount of receiving yards and touchdowns he had. I mean, 7 receptions. He was this team's leading wide receiver with 2 touchdowns. It was absolutely insane. Kenneth Gainwell is a top waiver wire ad this week. If you do have him on the waivers, I believe he's 45, 50% rostered. Somebody said Woody Marks, what is happening? Yeah, Woody Marks is doing Woody Marks things, unfortunately, which is bad because he was clearly the RB1. Like he had over, I think it was 18 carries this week, and it just was not anything. 2-something yards per carry against one of the most positive defenses in the NFL and allowing fantasy points to running backs. It is insane. Guys, if you're not followed on this page yet, please hit that follow button. I'll post a full video of the recaps of what we just learned on this page later this week and tomorrow. You're not going to want to miss that. But Jaylen Warren's injury is worrisome. So Kenneth Gainwell is a top waiver ad if you haven't already. Jason, thanks for hitting the follow button. I do appreciate you on that. And you look at these Steelers guys. I mean, Darnell Washington, all of these tight ends, The fact that Darnell Washington is running routes is absolutely insane because he's almost 300 pounds. We're not trusting Pat Fryermuth. We're not trusting Jonnu Smith. If you have any of them, you can drop them. You should have been dropped them a long time ago. And you look at the matchup here between the 49ers and the Cardinals. Brock Purdy in his first game back played absolutely amazing. Pretty good completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, a great one to George Kittle. Christian McCaffrey, again, doing Christian McCaffrey things. He didn't do a ton on the ground. I mean, the touchdowns were a ton. 13 carries, 81 yards, great efficiency, 2 touchdowns. But Brian Robinson Jr. was getting a decent amount of looks here, a couple carries for 24 yards. He's a guy that you can stash if you're worried about a Christian McCaffrey injury. He will fill in and be great if he does, but it's not something that we need to be rushing to the waiver wire and getting, unless you're a Christian McCaffrey owner already. Then you probably should. But George Kittle here, the leading receiver. We look at Ricky Pearsall. We were really not expecting him to do absolutely anything. We're buying Ricky Pearsall for how low his value is right now. If you still haven't had your trade deadline yet, now is the time to do that. But Ricky Pearsall is a guy we want to be buying. He didn't have a good game. We weren't expecting it. George Kittle, amazing, over 20 fantasy points, 2 touchdowns. Juwan Jennings actually had a pretty decent game because Ricky Pearsall ran so little routes. I would be looking to sell Juwan Jennings for that reason. Christian McCaffrey, again, doing his thing in the receiving game. Not much we really have to worry about there. And when we look at the Cardinals side of things, I mean, we could get Jacoby Brissett starting for the rest of the year. 2 interceptions is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. But look at these passing attempts. 57 passing attempts for Jacoby Brissett. This is, I think, this might be the highest passing total number this season of any quarterback. Thoughts on Ted McMillan? I think Ted McMillan definitely not going to be able to continue what he did this week, but considering he did that, put up over 20 fantasy points, a couple touchdowns against AJ Terrell, one of the best corners in the league, definitely a positive sign, and that's exactly why we were buying Ted McMillan very low when he was. The Panthers aren't going to score 30 points a game, but still, that's a guy that I do like. Guys, if you're just now hopping in the stream, you haven't liked it yet, please double tap, hit that like button. It helps me out so much as a creator, and if you're still hopping in this live stream listening and you're not followed, what are you doing? Post waiver wire advice, trade advice, start sits, defensive rankings, everything on this channel every single day. So you guys are not going to want to miss that. Zonovan Knight, Bam Knight, RB1 here after Amari DeMarcado got banged up. I mean, he really wasn't getting too much work. He did get the touchdown that saved his day, but you're not really going to be trusting him in the starting lineup anytime soon. And when we look at the anytime soon, we do have Trey Benson coming back from IR soon. If you don't have him or if he's still available on your waiver wire, pick him up, trade for him low, do whatever you have to do. Not that he's going to be a complete league winner, but he will be the RB1 pretty, like, almost workhorse-wise. You look at the receivers, Michael Wilson had an absolute legacy game. Yes, I was telling everybody to start with Michael Wilson, but if I would have told you he would do this, I'd be lying to you, and I wouldn't have said that. 15 receptions. Look at this yardage total. 185 yards, guys. Michael Wilson, this is like all-time Justin Jefferson numbers right here. How in the world? And the reason this is possible is because of Jacoby Brissett's 57 passing attempts. So it's not like this was a 40% target share. This is like whatever, amazing. It was really good, but you're not going to get Jacoby Brissett passing 60 times a game. So still, Michael Wilson, an amazing game. He didn't even have a touchdown. He put up so many fantasy points. As long as Marvin Harrison is out, he can be a 100% start. He is the wide receiver 1. He already runs 30+ routes per game. Even with Marvin Harrison healthy, that's top 15 in the NFL. Now he's not there. Michael Wilson's the number 1 guy. We see Trey McBride also having a great game, over 100 yards, a touchdown. This is what we love to see. Greg Dortch, I actually started at a flex spot in one of my leagues because I was very desperate and didn't have anybody that wasn't injured or on bye. He ended up being a good play. Not a guy I would be picking up off the waiver wire. He was valuable because he is the slot wide receiver. Again, you guys on this channel have heard me say it a million times. Slot wide receivers get targeted at a bit of a higher rate if your offensive line is really bad as well, because they run shorter routes. They're more of a safety blanket as far as wide receivers go because the routes are very short. You don't have to wait for them to develop. But he's not a guy that we're really going to be adding off the waiver wire. Michael Carter did get some run, which is very surprising in the receiving game. But that was mostly because of the Amari DeMarcado injury. Again, we have Trey Benson coming back soon, so nothing we can really expect to be continuing. But another thing about what we can expect here, the Rams get their win over the Seahawks, a very good defense. Both of these defenses were very good. Very drawn-out win. But you see Sam Darnold, man, 4 interceptions, not a very good game at all. Like, this was very inefficient. We see Kenneth Walker actually had an amazing game with his touchdown and his rushing attempts. That was kind of the recipe for success here. We saw Zach Charbonnet get a good amount of usage as well. these guys are going to be so tough to start and trust every single week on a week-to-week basis. If you look at the receptions, though, JSN, yes, he got held on a couple plays that didn't get called. That is what it is. Do we drop Courtland Sutton? I wouldn't drop Courtland Sutton. I'm definitely worried. We have Troy Franklin running more routes than him on a week-to-week basis. But the Broncos aren't going to get tough matchups like they've been getting over the past few weeks every single season. Lamar Jackson, yes, sir, 100%. 100%. AJ Barner had an amazing game, 10 receptions for 70 yards. Again, this goes back to how good the Rams defense is. They don't allow a lot of fantasy points to anybody but the tight ends. Their defense puts so much pressure on you, you kind of just have to dump it off. So AJ Barner had a good game. We also see Kenneth Walker getting some usage in the receiving game, and Rashid Shaheed with Cooper Kupp and the rest of those guys. And we look here at Matthew Stafford. I mean, he's just playing absolutely amazing. He didn't even pass that many times, but still 2 touchdowns on that. Kyron Williams got in for a touchdown. Now, we did see Blake Corum take a couple attempts at the goal line. I know Blake Corum didn't finish with a lot of fantasy points. He didn't really do much. But the fact that he's splitting almost goal line carries with Kyron Williams is a little bit worrisome. Blake Corum is a guy that I'll be looking to stash because of that. Puka Nacua doing Puka Nacua things. We didn't have Devontae Adams having a good game at all. It was only his touchdown, but he did run a considerable less amount of routes because he was coming to this game injured. So don't be worried about Devontae Adams. Like, if anything, maybe this is a buy low opportunity for him. We saw Jordan Whittington play a lot more snaps because he was pretty much limited. Tyler Higbee had a decent game only because nobody caught passes outside of Puka Nacua. You're not adding any of these guys here. And that is going to do it for these games. And you look here what we just witnessed with the Chiefs and the Broncos. I mean, this is a very close game. It's going to be tough for the Chiefs to get back into this clinching of the division here. Patrick Mahomes had a decent game. Again, he's doing Mahomes things. We had Kareem Hunt as the RB1 with Pacheco out again. Every single week, Pacheco's out. Even against one of the best defenses in the Broncos, he can still be started, as we can see. Brashard Smith can be dropped if you have him, if you stashed him. He's a guy that I kind of liked stashing for a while, but I mean, if Pacheco gets injured and he's not getting anything, then it's a dead dream, and we can pretty much give up on it. Travis Kelce, though, went back to his original Travis Kelce days, 9 receptions, almost 100 yards and a touchdown. I mean, you're not going to get that every single week, but it is what it is. You look at Rashee Rice here. He had a down game in Rashee Rice terms. But again, these are 2 of the best defenses in the NFL. The fact that it got this high scoring, I'm surprised about. So I'm not worried about any of these guys. I am very worried about Xavier Worthy, though. Like, he was a top sell before Rashee Rice came back. Now that Rashee Rice is back, it's chalk. It's chalk, complete chalk. And Hollywood Brown, 4 receptions, 40 yards is okay. Tyquan Thornton had a big catch. He does that every week. I'm not trusting, nor am I adding any of those guys off the waiver wire. We look at Bo Nix. Decently efficient day. Didn't have any passing touchdowns, though. RJ Harvey almost threw an interception. I don't know if you guys saw that. But he did pretty bad, all things considered. We saw Jaleel McLaughlin come in and start using some touches there. Do not add Jaleel McLaughlin. RJ Harvey kind of proved that if J.K. Dobbins is out, he's not a trustworthy start every week. But again, this was a really, really good Chiefs defense. So we're still holding on to R.J. Harvey. Troy Franklin essentially acting as his wide receiver 1. And you see Courtland Sutton, 4 receptions, 59 yards. Not terrible. But if Troy Franklin is running the same amount of routes as you in these really, really negative matchups like the Chiefs, he's going to be tougher to start. Now, he's not a guy I'm giving up on. Like somebody in the chat said earlier, he's not a guy that I'm just dropping. You cannot take these very, very negative matchups for more than what they were, and that's exactly what they were. I mean, he's still running a decent amount of routes. And you look at this Ravens game that just finished up, guys. We will be looking at the rest of these 8 p.m. games later in tomorrow's videos. But Lamar Jackson here, not a great game from him either. 2 interceptions. He didn't even go over 200 passing yards, but he did beat the Browns, mostly just because the Browns are bad. I mean, Derrick Henry went back to Derrick Henry things. 1 touchdown, over 100 rushing yards. One thing I do want to point out here, though, is Keaton Mitchell and the amount of usage that we did see from him. 6 carries for 31 yards, 5.2 yards per carry. Very efficient. I mean, Derrick Henry was as well. But Keaton Mitchell is a sneaky guy that if you have room to stash on your waivers, please do that. Somebody said Woody sold me in the chat. I mean, he sold me too. I started Woody Marks as well. I mean, everything on paper was there for him to have a good game. I mean, it just didn't happen. Fantasy football does that to us sometimes. We got to take the L and eat the L there. Guys, if you're just now hopping into the stream, though, hit that like button. If you haven't already, be subscribed to this channel to get more fantasy advice every single day. We are grinding until the end of the season to get you guys a fantasy football championship. That is my #1 goal. I want to help you guys do that. So help yourselves by hitting that follow button if you haven't. So Keaton Mitchell, yes, is a guy that I'm looking to stash if you have the availability on your bench. Dylan Gabriel did go down with an injury. It led Shador Sanders to play some games. Oh my goodness, he was very inefficient. You look at his completion percentage, buns, chat, buns. One interception. Only one of his 4 completions was an interception. That tells you everything you need to know. You look at Quinshon Judkins, he's still a workhorse, even though the Ravens defense isn't that good. 3.5 yards per carry is not good either. He should have had a way better day than this, but still, he's getting workhorse level usage. Better days will be to come. And we look at Cedric Tillman. This is a guy that I like stashing off the waiver wire. Dustin, thanks for hitting that follow button. Guys, if you are in the stream and you haven't followed, please do that. Takes 2 seconds, helps you win a fantasy championship because I post on here every single day. It is insane. 100% of my brain capacity goes towards fantasy football. But Cedric Tillman here is a still add off the waiver wire regardless of what quarterback we get. Is he going to be a super upside play? No. But he's still a guy that I do like to stash. Harold Fannin as well doing his thing. David Njoku. Nobody really did good, again, because of the quarterbacks here. They were holding back this entire team. Dylan Gabriel, only 7 completions. Shador Sanders, only 4. There's not much you can do in fantasy football when that is the case. Even when tougher matchups do come. I'm selling Juwan Jennings where I can. I don't think he is a must-start by any means on a week-to-week basis. Especially with Ricky Pearsall coming back into this offense. It's going to be tough. We do have Brock Purdy back, though. It does make this offense more efficient. But it is what it is with Ricky Pearsall and him for the rest of the season. Michael Wilson is worth a pickup instead of QJ rest of season stash. Okay, so Michael Wilson is definitely worth a pickup. I 100% agree with you. Instead of Quentin Johnson rest of season is tough because there are going to be better games for this Chargers team than what we just witnessed. There are going to be better games for the Chargers. They did not run really many routes at all, which is kind of disgusting. Like, that was the problem. And it's also been the problem for a couple weeks here. There we go. I don't know why my computer is being slow, chat. It is an ancient computer, so that might have something to do with it. You don't have anybody worse on your roster. Wouldn't drop Quentin Johnson. Yeah, no, I wouldn't drop Quentin Johnson either. Better days are ahead. He definitely is more hit or miss now that Rondé Gadsden is in this offense and getting as many routes per game as he is. But Quentin Johnson is definitely worrisome. You have Jason, Addison, Pierce, Quentin Johnson. I definitely am on the outside looking in right now. I mean, I have Quentin Johnson as well in a 32-person fantasy football league, and it is tough. It is tough to say the least. Like, it's definitely not fun. But chat, let me know. Hit up any questions you guys got in the chat. How'd your week go in fantasy football? We're up here answering as many as we can, doing it what we're doing, having fun in the chat. I appreciate your take on the game and fantasy advice. Oh, my boy, hold on. I remember seeing you in a lot of the comments. Shout out to you, bro. Thank you so much for the comment. Dalvin is ruled out for the season. No. Not from what I've seen. Dalvin is not ruled out for the rest of the season. If he was, it would make RJ Harvey an even better stash. I mean, everybody already has him rostered, but it's not something that I'm too worried about rest of season. Yo, we just got a super chat. Tyler Jacobs out for the rest of the year. Bro, I appreciate you, Tyler. Thank you so much for the super chat, man. Shout out to Tyler. I would clap very loudly, but I don't want to hurt everybody's ears in the chat. You are him. Thank you so much, bro. That is the second one I've ever gotten in my life. So you will be remembered, and I do appreciate you a lot. Yeah, Jacobs, I don't think he's going to be out for the rest of the year. I was talking about this earlier in the chat. For anybody watching post-production, I guess you would say, you can scroll, rewind earlier to see the rest of this information. Josh Jacobs is dealing with a PCL injury. That is the same thing that took Ricky Pearsall out for 6 weeks. Now, he had a grade 2 PCL, which was worse than just mild. Josh Jacobs, I think it's entirely in his range of outcomes to miss this week 12. In my opinion, it's a 1 to 4 week injury for Josh Jacobs. There's a very real chance that he doesn't come back for the rest of the fantasy playoffs until like your championship game. So Emmanuel Wilson is definitely one of, if not the highest, most important waiver wire ad. Again, guys, I will be dropping an entire full video on the top waiver wire ads for this week. If you guys aren't subscribed, if you don't have your like post notifications on or anything, make sure to do that. But yes, it does make Emmanuel Wilson a top waiver wire ad because he filled in 1-for-1. Like, Chris Brooks was the only other running back here, and he saw 1 carry. He only played 5 snaps. He was on the field for 5 plays. So yes, Emmanuel Wilson. I'm definitely worried about Josh Jacobs for his injury, though, as well. Chargers offensive line. Let's see. Ertz being out both impact the run. Ertz? Let's see. Everything seems rushed, not allowed to routes to develop. Yeah. Well, the main issue with the Chargers is that their entire offensive line is injured. Like, there's really not much you can do. Someone said, yes, Dobbins is out for the rest of the season. Is he really? Let's see. Is J.K. Dobbins really out for the rest of the season? Oh, he is. He is. How much are we overpaying for Wilson as a Jacobs owner? I mean, I would overpay. I would put a majority of my fab on him. Now, it does depend how serious the injury is. We don't technically know yet. If it were up to me, and because it's a PCL injury, I would say 2 to 4 weeks. I don't think he's going to go on IR. It's very possible. I think he will return at some point. That is the real question. I would put a majority of my fab on Emmanuel Wilson, especially as a Jacobs owner. If you have a really, really strong bench and like team in general, and there's not that many other like places you need an upgrade in, I think Emmanuel Wilson is worth 80% of your fab. But again, it does depend. If we get any more news on like the injury, our waivers don't clear until Wednesday, I guess technically Tuesday night. News will come out on that. But yes, a majority of my fab will go to him. They don't know until after surgery. Exactly. Yeah. Like he will need to go through an MRI. There's a lot more information we need to know. But yeah, definitely worrisome for Isaiah Pacheco should come back soon as well. But Kareem Hunt is a start for every single week that he's not. Chat, this is a very, very interesting week in fantasy football because we saw so many people get injured. A lot of the backup running backs scored touchdowns as well. A lot of them. So it makes a lot of top waiver ads, I guess, in that aspect of things. But Bajal Tootin top waiver ads, I will post an entire video of the top waiver ads for this week. So if you guys don't have your post notifications on, I'm sure all of you guys are following already. That will be dropping tomorrow, as well as the waiver wire traps, just the usual run through, as well as the game by game breakdowns, which you guys do love them. I have Hinton and Judkins, so not stressing Jacobs 100%. Yeah, I agree with that. Jacobs is very fun to watch. Should be coming back in the next 2 weeks. Game back though. The reason I'm mainly worried for him rest of season is because of how bad and really injured this offensive line is for the Chargers. They had one of the better offensive lines coming into the year fully healthy. Joe Alt out for the rest of the season definitely does hurt them, and now they have some more guys as well. So it definitely is unfortunate, and I am worried more for Marion Hampton now because of the fact that he will be injured. I mean, the offensive line will be injured, so his yards per carry numbers are probably going to decrease. I'm not looking to really sell high on him. I wouldn't call it that, but he's definitely somebody that I am more worried about now because of the offensive line and how injured they are. Not in a fab league, unfortunately, was thinking Sutton plus somebody on top. To trade for Emmanuel Wilson, that's tough. So somebody already has Emmanuel Wilson in your league and you want to trade for him, or you don't have a top waiver priority. Yeah, I think fab is honestly the number one way to go. And I've seen so many people start to use fab leagues now because they've just become a lot more popular. Like 3 years ago, nobody was really playing in fab leagues. But yeah, no. Definitely let me know in one of my recent videos that I post coming up this week in the comments. I answer almost 100% of them. What kind of deal and what kind of thing you're thinking of. And I'll definitely make sure to respond to everybody as well in the comments. But he might be worth trading for. Again, it depends how long the injury is, so I can't really give a full answer on that for Josh Jacobs yet. Wilson will be a top waiver priority, so depending on your current roster depth, yeah. I mean, he is. I'm literally was writing up the waiver wire video and the stats from that for this week, and Emmanuel Wilson is the number one waiver ad. So this is why it pays to have your post notifications on, be on this channel a lot, and we see in this video, in this live stream, Emmanuel Wilson is a top waiver ad, and we get that information very, very early. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to be that healthy. I don't think he's going to be that healthy. But we will see. Alt, not Ertz, and the Chargers impacting. Yeah, 100%. Alt being out is really hurts. Really hurts. But if we're talking about this game coming up in a matter of minutes for the Lions and the Eagles here, who do you guys have in the chat? You guys have the Lions or the Eagles? I know there's no numbers sitting here on the screen right now, which I kind of want to see. But I'm a bit worried about Jameson Williams, chat. I am a bit worried about Jameson Williams.